Welcome back to A Time for Change. The Latino vote had a huge role to play in states like Florida and Arizona. And our next guest says the results show both the promise and the peril of the Latino vote. We're joined now by Chuck Rocha. He served as a senior advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders during his 2020 presidential bid. He's the author of the book Tío Bernie and founder and president of the Latino super PAC, Nuestro PAC. Chuck, thank you so much for joining us today. I was reading some of your notes and you say that the Latino story of 2020 is still very much unwritten. I'm hoping you can break down for us what that means exactly.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me. And I think it's because it shows the diversity of our overall electorate. There's a lot of stories to be told. You just can't say the Latino vote did this or the Latino vote did that, because the Latino vote did several things on election night that made a lot of reporters and people who were watching kind of head explode. They were like, well, why did Latinos underperform for Joe Biden in Miami, but then overperform for Joe Biden in Arizona? And then, oh my gosh, I didn't know there were so many Latinos in Pennsylvania that could literally deliver that state for the president. And so that's just one of many stories. If you look at the House and the Senate races, there's another Latino story to be told. You will see that on a night where Joe Biden was catapulted to the presidency, and I would say on the back of black and brown voters in Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, there was also an underperformance because of the 10 congressional seats that we'll probably lose with the Democrats this year. 6 of them are almost all majority people of color. So there's a lot of work to be done, and celebrate our good times, but also not turn away from where the underperformance really happened.
So I want to dig in here, right, to that Latino voting bloc and how it's actually going to change or really shape the political parties moving forward. We have a tweet here now from Senator Marco Rubio, and he says this, quote, Florida and the Rio Grande Valley showed the future of the GOP, a party built on a multi-ethnic, multiracial coalition of working Americans. So I want to put it to you this way. How do you see the Republican Party, or the Democratic Party for that matter, changing going forward, especially as they're trying to both chip away for their own parties, the Latino vote?
I think there's lots of lessons to be learned. We start with the Republicans, and let's talk about what they did right. They invested probably more so than they ever had, trying to get a bigger percentage of the vote. And you saw that come to fruition in Miami-Dade, where there was a lot of money spent intentionally by the Trump campaign to get this demographic down there, the Cuban vote, which is more conservative. Most of them are registered as Republicans, but to maximize that. And so that's a good thing. Democrats need to figure out how we go in and cut our losses there and try to have bigger inroads. And in Texas, it's a little misnomer. You talk about these counties in the valley that are 90% Latino that underperform for Joe Biden. Well, the same type of counties actually where Latinos live in mass in Dallas and in Houston, those same precincts that are 90% Latino voted for Joe Biden at almost 75%. So even in the same state, you have Mexicans, Latinos from the same demographic of the Latino culture acting two totally different ways, because the folks in the valley that are Mexican like me talk like a lot like me and wear a cowboy hat and cowboy boots every day. But the Mexicans in the city are probably a bunch of woke brown hippies, and they're acting a whole different way. You got to talk to both of them.
How do you talk to both of them? I mean, look, when you go through it, it's obviously not monolithic here. And to the Rubio tweet, I mean, he's saying, look, this is our party. We want to take these people. We want them to come into our tent. Our tent is big. It's the progressives and the elites on the coast. They're narrow-minded. We're the big party here. So are Democrats at risk of having, taken them for granted, and the GOP stepping in here and making some real inroads?
There's some of that, but let's just be clear. They're also the party that's put babies and mamas in cages and ripped families apart at our border. Like, we need to get as tough as the Republicans in our messaging. And the way that you talk to both of these groups, and what I found in running the Bernie Sanders stuff in the primary, is there's this undertow of anxiety. And when you talk about a rigged system, or folks that have it better than you because they know somebody or because they're rich, whether they're Democrat or Latino or independents, people get that because Latinos are some of the most hardworking people in the world. And so they'll work several jobs. They'll take a trivial job and work 3 of those jobs, but they want to know that there's an end result because they aspire for something greater. The average age of a Latino in America is only 27. So keep that in mind, that a Latino acts more like a more infrequent young voter because we're more transient and are probably working lower wage jobs.
Well, speaking of that, what are some of the promises that Biden can actually deliver on once he begins his administration that would help satisfy the Latino voters that went for him?
That is such a great question because there's things that Joe Biden can do immediately, and you saw him touch on some of those this week. So the power that Joe Biden has is an executive action. The power that he has is to put a cabinet in place that reflects the values of the Latino community. So let's think about that. What's something he could do that's easy with executive actions? Well, the first thing you can do is implement back into place DACA and TPS, where Donald Trump has taken away these protections for these young dreamers and for TPS immigrants who've come here, right? So that's something that's immediate. He can also, you heard me refer to these prisons along our border where these babies are being kept. He's already said he will try to reunite over 600 children who've been ripped from their mothers. That's something very good. Let's do that immediately. And then also he could put people in his cabinet that look like America. He's already done that with his vice presidential pick. Now he can do it with a labor secretary, a housing secretary, an attorney general. I want to see a lot of beautiful black and brown and multicultural faces that look like my community. That's a big hat tip to that community to say, I'm here and I'm listening to you.
What do you think is going to happen in Georgia?
I think there's going to be a lot of money spent. What I think is going to happen in Georgia, and the price of doing work down there just went up. I'm a political consultant, like I'm a practitioner. I'm one of the few black and brown people in America who actually run campaigns for a living. The price of TV's already tripled down there. There's going to be a gluttony of money, but what I think is going to happen is it's going to be a really close race. I think it'll be won again on the backs of these steadfast African-American women and these Latinos. Like I think these two groups, if they show up in the numbers and come back again because of the amazing work that Stacey Abrams has done. My PAC, Nuestro PAC, is putting together a program to go in and double down. There's about 240,000 Latinos that are persuadable voters in that state. So I think going in and doing that, the key to a runoff in these elections is who can you get back? After the holidays, after you put on 4 or 5 pounds by eating too much turkey, and now you got to show up and vote, like it's going to take some getting out to vote them.
Man, I really loved having this conversation with you, Chuck. We're going to have to bring you back again in the future to get some more of these insights. Chuck Rocha, senior advisor to Senator Bernie Sanders during his 2020 presidential bid. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.